everyone. It's nice to be on this platform again. I'm just waiting for more people to join, and then I will invite our incredible guest for Conversations with Olga episode. Today, thank you for joining us. I can see some of my friends. Right. Hello everyone. I'll just wait for a little bit early. So we'll just wait for a few seconds. I'm sure Hajar will join us in a second. And I will say a few words about the IGTV and YouTube series that I've started for some of you who are joining us today for the first time. And then we'll move into the very, very exciting conversation and really something that I am not very diverse, I should say. Hajar is joining us. One second. There we go. Hello. So good to see you.
Hi again.
Hello. Wonderful. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, I can hear you well.
Okay. Thank you. It's wonderful. So, dear Hajar, it's such a privilege to have you with me live today, even though we spoke so much to one another. But of course, I would love to share your journey with our listeners. I will say a few words about the Conversations with Olga because some of the people are joining us for the first time, and then I will just say a few words before about you, just a few words, and then actually you will share everything through the conversation and through just the few of the questions and few topics that we'll try to cover in this abundance, but we'll try to condense as much as we can. Does it sound okay? Hello, I think you're frozen. Hajar, you're frozen. You might need to disconnect perhaps one time and then join again. Because I can't, can you hear me? That's the wonders of technology. I'll just give it a second and then perhaps, Hajar, maybe you try to join one more time. Let's see. Hello? No. Okay.
I have no idea. I mean, I'm at home. I hope the internet doesn't play up. Maybe I should try 4G. Maybe I should try. Hold on, yeah.
It's up to you. But yeah, you see, it's breaking off a little bit. Yes, you're frozen again, my dear. Yeah, it's frozen. Would you like to perhaps see whether you can go on a 4G or sit at another location closer to the internet? Let me try again. Sorry about it, but we'll make sure that we'll get it fixed in a second. I'm just trying to connect to Hajar. Hajar can't seems to connect with you. Shall I quickly disconnect and hello? maybe I will apologize to everyone. I will disconnect and I will connect once again. Hajar, I hope you can hear me. Um, okay, you're unable to join. Let me disconnect and I will try one more time. Let me try. Hello? Okay, here you go.
I hope this is better because I switched on my Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
I hope this works.
yes, I can hear you and I can see you. So
Yeah.
it's great to have you on Conversations with Olga, and thank you again for joining.
Bye.
Just presented a little very short introduction. Hello everyone, hello our friends in Asia, good evening and good morning to our friends in US, and good afternoon to our friends in Europe. A few words about Conversation with Olga. I started this about 2 years ago during the circuit breaker because I had more time, and I know incredible individuals that I've met through my career and my life, and I wanted to introduce these individuals to the multicultural Singaporean and global community through a platform that accessible and interesting, and a platform that I was able to manage with more or less within days because I'm not a techie. These conversations run gamut from intellectual and cultural exchanges to more personal conversations and how people fulfill their dreams. My main mission for this program and hope actually for the series to inspire and cultivate a more diverse and inclusive community that can learn from one another. And it is an honor for me to have Hajar Ali for the episode number 41. Hajar is Singaporean artist and entrepreneur. I will just do very quick one sentence introduction and we'll move forward. Hajar's background is in politics and strategic studies, but she later dove into real estate and then founded Urban Nomads, a bespoke luxury travel agency. And I remember actually that was the first time when we met. In 2012, Hajar became the first woman to cross the empty quarter, the largest sand desert in the world. She now creates unique art that plays with AI and nature. We'll be talking about reverse Orientalism, auto-destructive and AI art, NFTs, your journey in setting huge milestones, and so much more. Welcome to Conversations with Olga Hajar. I think the best way to introduce you to our viewers and listeners would be jump right into some of the questions. And I would like to start with your journey. Your life and experiences you have are definitely extraordinary, and I keep telling you about it. And that's actually an understatement. Taking, thank you. Talking to you and getting to know you, I actually wonder, how does your brain work? What is your thought process like? And because you have an incredible skill to multitask. But let's start from the very beginning. And our friends who are joining us tonight will see what I mean by saying that you are totally an extraordinary person. You studied politics and specifically strategic studies in Singapore in what is now the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies. And it's incredibly prestigious school. And actually, I worked with them in staging an incredible event for them fairly recently. It's an extremely, but your thesis was political scientist James C. Scott's model of peasant resistance, and I had to Google myself quite a bit of stuff about it, to the daily transgressions of Iranian youth against the ruling mullah. It's an extremely bold topic, I should say. Do you have a personal connection to Iran?
No, I don't. It's purely theoretical because one of my professors actually did a book based on James C. Scott's model. And then, so I looked into it, and it's just like so interesting because what the original model that was studied by James C. Scott was based on the everyday resistance of peasants against the landowners. So, and it's all very banal, right? Like, how do you resist your masters without losing your jobs? So, and I wanted to I wanted to see whether the model actually works in Iran. And as a Muslim in Singapore, I think, or anywhere in the world, because I was born in 1979. And in 1979, the Iranian Revolution happened. And I think it changed. It was very impactful. Like, it changed the Muslim world. It changed the narrative for the Muslim world that an Islamic theocracy could actually work. But obviously it hasn't. Like, we all know now that it hasn't worked. So just as a purely as an intellectual exercise, I thought it was interesting.
Thank you for that. And you grew obviously up in Singapore. And what exactly inspired you to pursue studies in international relations? Is it something that you observed and wanted to change the world in a way?
In a way, I think subliminally, it was maybe 9/11. And then I know that when I travel, it completely changes the way you travel after that. I mean, especially as a Muslim, if you have a Muslim name in your passport, it really changes. And ironically, I find that it's mostly in Muslim countries that it's more difficult. I mean, in America, yes, it's difficult because I've been to Iran, I've been to Pakistan. Yeah, so I mean, all the more the places that are more on the restricted list. So when I go to the US, I'm on the SSS list. So which means that I'm under more security. It's more painful. It's a more painful process to travel when you go to the US. That's one. But what I find interesting is also when I go to Morocco, which is a Muslim country, they accuse me of using a fake passport because they believe that if you're not Arab, if you're not African, you can't be Muslim. Like, they've never heard of Muslims in any other part of the world. So every time
really poor knowledge of the history.
Yeah, I think not enough Southeast Asians go to Morocco. So every time I go to Morocco, they would think I'm using a fake passport. And then I would go to a very long list of questioning, like, where's your dad from? No, where originally from? No, but where's his family from? So.
That's incredible. But you gravitated, you eventually built a career in architecturally designed real estate. I believe this forms a core part of your exploration and as in AI and art now. Am I correct to say? But we talk a little bit about it later. How did you decide to switch from politics into real estate, first of all?
Not really. I think when I did that was what the architecturally distinguished boutique real estate firm was called. I was more attracted. I've always been very visual. So I could look at something, get it into my head. I told you over coffee, like on Monday. I could look at something, get it into my head that I'm going to do it. So I've always been, I mean, I love beautiful things. I'm very aesthetic that way. So I love beautiful real estate. I love beautiful places. So it was a natural job for me.
That's actually also was a natural and to explore for you the creative intellectual industries in general, and you moved into and you took a step to go into the luxury travel industry, and where you founded Urban Nomads. Can you tell us a little bit about this project and what exactly does the luxury travel mean to you? What are the essentials of it, perhaps?
How I switched from urban spaces was because because I'm a real estate agent. I'm not a developer, so I'm not creating anything. I'm just the middleman who puts clients and the properties together. So even if a client comes to me with a legitimate budget, they know what they want. I know what they want, but if there's nothing on the market, there's nothing I can do. Yeah. So I was really frustrated by this, and I was on a trip I think what sparked it was I was on a trip in Argentinian Patagonia where there was a lot of luxury properties, but it's very remote and it's difficult to get to. That was when I came up with the idea for a Urban Nomad. So I'm in a creative position. As long as the client has a legitimate budget, they give enough time to prepare, there's always something I can do for them.
And you shared that and you, it brings me a little bit further. You shared with me that you actually wanted to bring this idea further, but something stopped you.
Oh,
I think
I wanted to create travel like a humanitarian because again, it's baggage, that political background where I feel like it can't just be about luxury travel. And a lot of things about luxury travel is a lot of, I don't know what they call it, greenwashing, whitewashing, where you just say, oh, we have a green eco resort, and eco resort just such a cheap term, like everyone has an eco resort, but what really is an eco resort? What is responsible travel? Like nobody cares to just like sticking labels onto things. So coming from a background, I wanted to see whether travel could be done ethically. So I generally feel that luxury travel can be done ethically. It's actually the most ethical form of travel because it's high value, low impact. So if you go for a safari, for example, okay, like 2 case studies, people are very against hunting, but I feel like controlled hunting is actually beneficial. Looking at 2 case studies, you look at Kenya and Tanzania. Like in Kenya, hunting is banned, and Tanzania actually allowed, but it's very controlled. It's very well controlled by the government. And people get very emotional over these topics because they feel like hunting is bad. But I've seen, like, I've gone to reserves where hunting, they made it so expensive. They made it so prohibitively expensive that it becomes a tool for conservation. That then it kills off the need for poaching. Like why poaching exists? Because staff is underpaid. But once hunting comes in and it's well controlled, and the staff has no incentive to actually help poachers to come in and just decimate the local population of animals, is a much better alternative. I feel it's more ethical, but people get very emotive over this.
That's an incredible explanation. I never thought of it, and thank you for sharing with us. And apart from your rich and diverse explorations throughout your career, you obviously, and we spoke about it, you have an incredible, diverse variety of different interests, and you also have a number of milestones to your name. In 2016, for example, you were Singapore's first representative to the World Horseback Archery competition. Could you share a little bit how did this come along, and what the relationship do you have with horses, and whether you ride, how often?
I think I mentioned to you, like I was 12 years old when I crossed, I went with my parents on a pilgrimage with my family, and then I saw this guy in all white, like crossing the Dead Sea, and this guy in all white riding a white horse, gray horse, what's such thing as a white horse, gray horse, and I got it in my head that I'm going to ride horse. So the first opportunity I had, which was 9 years later at 21, I got on a horse, took riding lessons, and then that was it. I wanted to like learn eventually, because I started riding at the polo club, and then I'm like, okay, let me try polo next, because what am I going to do with the riding? So I trying to get my handicap for 1 year. Never materialized. They wouldn't even let me get into the practice cage. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I would just go to England to get my handicap, and then I come back, take a test, and then they have to give it to me, right? So I did. I took a sabbatical. I took like a 6 months more, around 6 months sabbatical. I did like 2.5 months, 3 months in England to get my handicap. And then I'm like, I have 3 more months. What do I do with it? And Istanbul is my favorite city in the world. I say Istanbul is not far.
We talk a little bit about it. Yes.
Yeah. So when I was in Istanbul, I was on Instagram, and then I put Istanbul. I mean, Istanbul had a polo club. I looked it up in the book that they gave me after I got my handicap. So I contacted the guy and I said, "Can I play at your club? I have my handicap now." And he said, "We are the only polo club in the world without a polo field."
Oh my God.
And he said, "They're hoping for funding, but right now we don't have a polo field." I'm like, okay. So what do I do with all my polo stuff, all my riding stuff? But I'm sure there are horses in Istanbul. So I went on Instagram and I was like, Istanbul horse. And then it auto-completed horseback archery. And I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. So I learned like horseback archery in Istanbul.
And once again, go into curiosity. You're extremely curious person, and you don't stop. So obviously, that's great. And you shared with me previously that in your previous incarnation, you were the first woman to cross the empty quarter, also the largest sand desert in the world. This crossing happened in 2012. There are only very few people, if you Google, our listeners, if you Google, and I did, there were only just very few people who've done this exhibition in the world. And why did you decide to do that? What was the experience like, and what does it mean tapping into the previous incarnation means to you spiritually?
Okay, so I was actually researching a trip for clients for like a luxury trip to the empty quarter, and then something led to another, and then I read that there was a guy called Abdullah Philby, and he's the father of Kim Philby, of the famous
Yeah.
spies, yeah, that Philby. So he wanted to cross the empty quarter. And because he needed funding, he was going to bring Rosita Fox, who's like an expeditioner, like a female expeditioner, who he said brilliant at marketing herself, brilliant at getting sponsorship because she knows how to position herself and get sponsors. He just needed her for money. But as soon as he got the green light from the Saudi king, he just said, you know what, I don't need her anymore. So she got played out of becoming the first woman to cross the empty quarter because he went by himself. So I read after, I mean, I continued like, has any other woman done it? Because I think the age of desert exploration ended soon after, as events turned out. Like, because that was the great age of exploration. That was that was when who is that guy? The guy where why am my mind is drawing a blank, but you know that guy who's so the British explorer, the one who's so
Oh,
but that guy.
okay. We'll look him up and I'll
There have
write.
movies about him and like desert exploration, and that was like the peak of British colonialism, a colonial empire.
Mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
as colonial, the period of colonial rule in the Middle East was actually, they went to different troubles,
Yeah.
and then it opportunity for continued exploration in that area because of the political situation, and then people just lost interest in exploration in that particular area. So there was this opportunity for me, and I just thought that's my chance at immortality.
Okay. Yes, but that's a segue to the question on your planning next trip. And as someone who traveled so much before, what does it mean for you to prepare for something extraordinary as a trip? And I know that we spoke about your planning for Antarctica, for example.
So I don't understand. Would it be for me or for a client?
No, for you. For you, what would it take you to prepare for the trip? And what is your next, perhaps, dream destination that you're working on at the moment?
I was planning on going to Mauritania because I wanted, in Mauritania, there's the problem of, they have these ancient desert libraries, and Mauritania is the second largest or second most important according to the US after Timbuktu, of course.
Yes.
But the thing with being second is that you receive almost no funding. So Timbuktu sucks most of the funding for the UN, and the Mauritanian libraries get almost none because they're second. I mean, that's the thing in life. Like if you're second, no one about you. So there are all these desert libraries in Mauritania that are in danger of perishing because, first of all, the terrorists, but more the environment. And the environment is just, the books are just being destroyed because of the desert climate. And there are NGOs that have come in, and then like there was a German NGO that supplied like Ziploc bags where you just, kind of Ziploc bags, so it's like airtight plastic containers. And there's a Spanish NGO that actually digitized all the books. So coming from an NFT background, I thought, let's put everything on the blockchain. Like that would be a very interesting project, and I wanted to work with us.
Yeah.
And so I wrote to them in my pidgin Spanish, and no response.
Yeah, that brings me to actually the topic. You do speak different languages, and of course, you're fluent in Malay and you speak French and Spanish. I personally believe that learning different languages unlocks different parts of our minds, and there are many words and phrases that we can't really use in pure English because it just the essence of it is not strong enough. So I myself can speak English, Russian, and a bit of Italian. So and I have always loved looking into linguistics and different philosophies that each language reveals. How does being multilingual affect your experience of traveling and creating art in general?
I was just thinking about this question last night before I went to bed. So I just remembered in Western Mongolia, which is close to the Kazakh border, and I wanted to go eagle hunting, hunters, because they're the best preserved. So I was there, and I knew the guys were Muslim, and it was a very long day trip, and I needed to pray in the afternoon before I went back. So I was trying to communicate with them that I needed to pray, and I used the Arabic word, and they just didn't understand what I was trying to say. And then I used a word that I learned in Delhi, which is namaz for prayer, and they immediately understood. So then I understood that these are like the third languages, it's Central Asian, so like Turkish, evidently in Western Mongolia, in Hindi. There are a lot of words that are very similar.
Yeah.
So I found, yeah.
Very true, very true. And among European languages as well, because the base is Latin,
Yes.
and so you can relate to different languages, um, but yet there is of course a common maybe root for some of the words. Do you think being a woman affects your ability to travel, and especially to less explored areas, so areas that where women don't necessarily have the same freedom as we have here in Singapore?
Yeah, in when I was in Pakistan, in Chitral, and this was a place where Osama was thought to have been hiding, mainly because they call them warlords, but the warlords in Chitral have, I think it was the number one place that America thought Osama was hiding. First of all, because of the mountainous desert terrain, and also because of the philosophy of the people there. Like when I was there, you could see like don't leave their house unless like they wear like the niqab, so only their eyes are seen. And at the hotel that I was staying at, which belongs to the local Muslims, there was a book extolling the virtues of Osama, like Osama is a hero in that part of the world. So and women don't even do groceries, right? Like men do the groceries, so they have very few reasons to leave home.
Yeah.
So when you have to register yourself at the police station because then they assign you a bodyguard. So I had to go collect my bodyguard, and they gave me a bodyguard, and I went to the festival, the Coffee Vistan thing where they worship fairies, and it's all guarded in like metal detector gates, which don't work by the way, to prevent like extremists coming in and trying to bomb up the place because it's not a pagan celebration. So I was there, and the guard accompanied me for the day. And then at the end of it, he asked, like, do you want to come? Do you want to come to my house? And then, out of politeness, I just said, yeah, okay. The driver was there, the guide was there, and he said, let's go to your house. So, and then he took us to, it was interesting. There were all these like urban, there's an urban bazaar, and then suddenly you go to, it was like Harry Potter. Suddenly you go to a corridor, like a small narrow corridor, and suddenly it's like all greenery, streams, ducks swimming in streams, like magic, right? He took me to his house, beautiful garden, introduced me to his sister-in-law, and he said, he was very proud of his sister-in-law. My sister-in-law is taking a PhD. So obviously he was very proud of like his sister-in-law living in that environment, and she's taking a PhD. Yeah, so I see it different. I think like as a woman, if I had been a man, I would never have been invited home because they observed the
But what about with regards to the religion? Because there are a lot of tension between different religious communities. What are your tips on trying to blend in and maybe acclimatize to different cultures and different religions? And how safe do you feel in the places? Because you're definitely very gutsy and you're definitely very, very brave young woman. So can you please share your feelings and your insights with us?
To blend in? Oh, I have no idea. I just know that before I went to Chitral, the guide told me like go shop for clothes, wear something longer so that all your tops have to be below your hips. So you just guides. And I told you I was going to Afghanistan. I was planning on a trip to Afghanistan. My visa was denied. So, but I knew that going to Afghanistan, I was definitely blending in. I was not going to like stick out. So I would have worn the whole niqab. Yeah, and I think I would have blended in. I was going to the Hazara community where, it's all very Asian looking. So I think it would have been fine.
It just takes a lot of guts. I don't know, but that many people who are listening to our conversation right now can even relate to something like that. And I would like to talk a little bit about the books and learning. I know that you read a lot, and you read a lot in your mother tongue, in Malay, and even you posted how that unlocks childhood memories. Books provide, of course, an endless source of inspiration, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that the books influenced you with certain ideas. How do you navigate and create something that is truly yours through perhaps inspirations and reading a lot?
My mom was a Malay teacher, and I took Malay as a first language in school. So definitely, up to a certain age, like Malay was an important part of my life. And then after, I also feel like talking about books doesn't have to be Malay books. I think my Instagram moniker, Woman Called Wild, it was inspired by the book that Rosita Fox, the woman who wanted to be the first woman to cross the empty quarter. She wrote a book. She's a travel writer, and she wrote a book called Women Called Wild, documenting all the different women in like native kind of communities where they live very wild lifestyles compared to Western convention. My moniker on Instagram was actually in the book that she wrote.
Thank you for sharing. Well, I would like to move into the art and expressing it via social media. I think everybody is very curious, everybody wants to know, and I will ask you a very basic and common question before we move into the depths of the matter, art you create. What does social media mean to you? As an AI artist, social media seems to be the key platform that a lot of people use these days.
I think the most efficient way of marketing social media, I mean, as an individual, there's no better way. I think even for bigger companies, they're just realizing that it's the best way to communicate, to market. What I'm curious about is, like, before social media, how did it become big? I think I was mentioning to you on Monday that I think I'm overly dependent on social media to market, because I know that, like, the big artists, even if you take away their social media accounts, they're still fine. They still get jobs. People will still buy their art. So they're dependent on social media. Like, I need to find out how to not be so dependent on social media. So for me, it's
I
more
agree. And I'm actually trying not to be so dependent on social media, and we chat a little bit about it later. But do you have any thoughts on how the social media evolving in general? Singapore does have even an AI influencer. It seems here that I asked that right. So what do you think? What are your thoughts about the evolving in this
I
field?
saw that on a promoted post, so I did look at it. But I also know that there's a video game, there's a company now where you can create video game characters that are AI powered. So you can game. I saw it. As a detective, it's a detective story. So you assume the role of a detective, and you interview the different characters in the game, and they're all AI powered. So you can have very real conversations with them, and some of the conversations that people tried and shared were very. So I'm wondering whether the AI influencer is actually just AI image generated, or it's actually AI powered. I'm just wondering how it works.
It's true, actually. And you started as an entrepreneur, and now you're an internationally recognized artist. I know that a lot of your art plays the theme of reverse Orientalism. Could you please share a little bit about what it actually means and what inspired you to dig deeper into this topic?
Okay, so again, it's like my political background. So on Edward Said's thesis of Orientalism, and then there is, I think reverse Orientalism is mostly an academic field of study where they try to take the precepts of Orientalism and then they overturn it. So I'm taking a very theoretical approach, but I'm doing it via art, very visual. So what I do, one of the things that's most problematic, people find most problematic with AI right now, that's most contentious, is that when people are prompting AI art, they're using the names of artists. So what I did is for my Orientalism series was to prompt the names of Orientalist artists so that I keep their, but I am inverting the nature of the subject. So for example, with the thing with Orientalism art is that a lot of women are portrayed as sexually available supine creatures in like a sultan's harem or in Turkish bathhouses. I mean, in the Occidental imagination, I mean, these things, no one has ever seen these images, no one knows if it's real. especially the painters. I mean, a lot of them have never been to Istanbul or Turkey, Constant, whatever you call it.
Yes, yes.
So it's all in the imagination, but it feeds the colonial narrative to portray these women as being sexually available. So this same Orientalist artist would then portray Napoleon as basically God, because they're following the visual language of Jan van Eyck, who portrayed God on his throne, and then with that body language, then they portrayed Napoleon in the same body language of God on his throne, basically positing Napoleon as God. So what I do is to prompt the names of these artists to keep the style, but I'm using women who would have otherwise been portrayed as supine, sexually available slaves, as empowered women on films. So you're keeping the whole aesthetic, but we are reversing the power play. You're basically
incredible. You basically, your life experiences, your knowledge, and your reading shape the way you relate to creativity and art, the way I see it. I talk often, and we spoke about it with you just a few days ago. I talk often about the art of communication. To me, it's through my events and experiences I create. I guess I'm more cerebral because I'm not really very, very technically savvy, as well as books I have written, and of course through conversations like ours today. Is AI and NFT is your way of communicating with the world? Is it main communication tool? Yes.
I think I brought up to you on Monday. I see a parallel between AI and the tools that what was it? Luther and the 95 Theses, like the Lutheran movement only happened because of the printing press. Like without the printing press, the movement wouldn't have been the Lutheran movement.
Yes.
So what he wanted to do was he wanted to give the tool for interpretation, it used to be that to interpret text, like sacred text, it's only the prerogative of clergy. He says, no, everyone should have the tools to interpret it. So he spent like many years interpreting the Bible in the vernacular. That's what he did. And it was only made possible because of the printing press. And the printing press allowed ideas to be disseminated like widely. And I feel like we are at that point in civilization where AI allows everyone with creativity, anyone with ideas, to actually, prior to that, because they didn't have the skills to actually articulate themselves. So we're going to see like a very interesting renaissance.
Development. And what medium do you prefer using? You've mentioned accidental imagery, and I know that you create a lot of incredible, stunning, beautiful AI art as well. It's very unknown territory to me personally, so due to the, I guess, technological challenge. But can you please share a little bit with our listeners about the medium and how do you create? What is your process?
Okay, how do I create AI? Okay, so when people ask, how do I create AI art?
In your main language.
Yeah, it's very, at its base, it's just putting in words. That's the short answer. But the long answer is I spend many hours refining my technique. It's not just let me put which I want to copy. I mean, you don't do that. You don't have that. And what style. I mean, if you do, there are lots of, you could do that and it's just going to be generic to everybody else. But you have to know the relationship with the AI. You have to like coax it in. You're always working with the AI. So you have to see like what words trigger what reactions. Because certain words trigger certain reactions within the AI, but until you experiment, you don't know. But once you get it, like you keep, I mean, it's something that goes into like your black book, I mean, not small black book, where like certain words trigger certain reactions, and then like but you have to continue experiment.
Continue to develop and continue to immerse yourself. Well, you also created the world's first dynamic AI NFT using work generated by AI that converted text to image, as you said, and you coded the NFT such that it changes twice a day at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. It was coded, and I'm Googling, and I'm just basically sharing it, what I've learned. It was coded with specific and dynamic narrative behind it. It was a form of auto-destructive art, and we spoke about it, inspired by Gustav Metzger, uh, who was a German artist and political activist who developed the concept of auto-destructive art. Why? What inspired this narrative? How did you approach auto-destructive art via NFT coding?
Okay, I feel like the 1001, back to the whole reverse Orientalism, I feel like the 1001 Nights is the Eastern world's biggest export to the Occidental world. It's the most successful export to the Occidental world. So I wanted to play off that narrative, and Scheherazade being a woman, being the one I mean, it's in a very interesting power dynamic. Is she the one in power, or is she the one, like she can be killed because if she doesn't please the Sultan, but she's also in power because the Sultan needs to keep her alive to listen to the next story. So it's a very interesting power dynamic, and I wanted to transfer that power dynamic into code. And what I find beautiful about, I mean, of course, a lot of NFTs is just gimmickry. It's a lot of, it's very gimmicky. But what I find interesting is how code is perceived as art in NFTs. And there is a very specific niche of generative art that has found its natural medium through NFTs, because prior to that, generative art is not new, where you just code using code, you create beautiful images using purely code. But with NFTs, it created a new medium, because then people could press the mint button, and then you don't know what's going to come out. And it's completely on chain, and it's beautiful because it's just code, and this code is poetry, right? And I wanted to I wanted to put the two together, the narrative and code as poetry. So then I portray the day and night dynamic, and also after someone has bought it, so what's the power dynamic? Like Scheherazade belongs to somebody else, and I discussed this with the new owner, of course. I said, how about if it's unlisted for the next 1001 nights, we'll start the process of auto-destruction. So what's the auto-destruction? Let's get it back to its genesis state, which is the words that created, the prompt that created.
Exactly. That's the origin of it. And this is incredible, and it's just so deep. My son, Mark, is a filmmaker, and he explores at the moment the world of NFTs creation as well. But what are the key learning points from the projects that involve NFT, on your opinion? I'm asking the question as well.
Because it's also new to me. I think it's new for most people. Some people discovered NFT like 2017. That's when they had the CryptoPunks, and then 2020 was when it actually boomed. And of course, it's all hype driven, very fueled by marketing. But when the hype dies down, they say like you can see who's been swimming naked. Then, I find that a lot. What stays after the hype dies, I think that's what's most important. And I find that that's going to be generative art is going to be one of the most interesting tenets. Of the pillars of NFT art. You can have NFTs in anything, but we're talking about like NFT art. I see it as generative art, very coding. It's all very code based.
Yes, but your art, and you also meld the beautiful interiors with exotic remote locations through AI. And to be honest with you, I'm totally addicted to look at these images, because I can imagine myself in the spaces, and that's gone viral on Instagram, obviously. Can you please share a little bit about this series and about this artwork that you created?
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Like the piece that went viral, I didn't expect it to go. I almost did not post it because
I don't know if anybody can see it, but I have a second phone just to show just a little bit, just one of the images that are extraordinary, really.
Thank you. So that particular house, which I initially called the Jim Thompson house, and then I took on the name because there were so many people that commented it's not the Jim Thompson house. I'm like, I know it.
So,
Everyone knows that, but it was inspiration behind it. But since so many people commented, I'm like, you know what? It's not the Jim Thompson house. But I thought everybody knew. and and I was inspired by a modern Thai aesthetic, and that was something I wanted to create like for myself. I was like, okay, what kind of house would I create for myself? I was completely isolated, discount the practicalities of living in a jungle where there are like lots of mosquitoes. I'm not sure, lots of mosquitoes, lots of bugs. Something that's just aesthetic is AI idealism, right? And what would I create? And initially, I'm like, I like it, but if I post it, bomb. Because another post had actually gone semi-viral before that, which is this. I did this design of the lamp with this the whirling dervishes hat as chandeliers, and that went semi-viral. And I thought, okay, if I post this, it's not going to get so many likes, it's not going to look that good, but you know what, I like it. And then there were people who said, oh, it's beautiful. I posted it on stories first, and people were like, okay, it's beautiful. I'm like, yeah, okay, I like it. So I posted it, but I didn't expect it to like go viral.
True, but also because AI art has received a lot of flack in recent months, and its qualifications as art has been heavily debated. Is it really art if it strips away the raw human emotions, or is it stealing from other artists? Have you encountered such arguments, and what is your personal take on it?
Okay.
How do you react to it?
My personal take is like that. It's like what I said earlier. It's similar to Luther and his, or if I'm going to be like verbose about it, Theus and the fire. So Luther giving the keys for interpretation of sacred texts. I mean, there's to the laity, anyone can interpret it. So I feel that with AI giving access to the creation of art to anyone, because it's just text. But then when you say first, what qualifies as art? If you say that AI art is not art because there's no, you take away, it's the AI that's generating it, it's not the human, there's no human generating it. They've been working with machines forever. I think when Photoshop first started, people started questioning reality. Is this really art? If you are touching up your, is that real? And now we have filters, we have, which is also AI. We have so I think our perceptions of what art is continually changes. And for example, I mean, to not adopt technology is actually it's gimmickry. I mean, like if you are, I mean, okay, it's quite ironic that the people who are saying it's not art are like photographers, and photography was not accepted as art for a long time, only until recently, because the argument is you're not painting, you have no skills, you take a camera that was you didn't do anything, you just press a button. I mean, pressing a button is technically a lot easier than typing in text. But what is a photographer? You press a button. So I think, but then people saw how photography evolved. Like there were people who could do things that you never thought anyone can do with a camera. These are the ones who become artists. So not everyone with a camera is an artist, but the ones who are good at it are artists.
And also, of course, there are ethical considerations that, in general, that we all need to follow no matter what we do in life. So pure artists and true people to themselves, they obviously, I'm sure, ensure that the technologies are used responsibly and fairly, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean, the whole concern that people are saying that if you are prompting an artist's style, then you are taking away like that person's work. You're basically cannibalizing that person's work. But that's not how AI works. I mean, I've had companies come to me saying like, hey, can you reproduce? I mean, let's say they're like a carpet company or a furniture company. They say we'll give you like high resolution images of the furniture or the carpets or the wallpapers to create like real life living situations, like high end residences where it incorporates these pieces of furniture. And I'm saying no, because AI doesn't work like that. Like it doesn't matter how high the resolution of the imagery that you give me, AI cannot copy. It's incapable of copying. So I mean,
that's a great point. Thank you for sharing that. That's a really, really great point. And what role do you see AI and IT playing in the future of sustainability and eco actually conscious design in general? how can we use these technologies to promote more environmentally friendly practices and projects? What is your take on it?
AI is a tool, so it's easier to get your ideas across. Like people, it lowers the barrier essentially. So people with ideas who previously could not communicate can do it now. So I've seen very adventurous, very bold attempts by people to say like, okay, this is how we can improve. This is how we can design cities so that it connects better and it's more environmentally friendly. In the real, it's more sustainable. I think these are the keywords. And I think in the real world, like a lot of architects are already doing that. But AI is just another tool where people who previously didn't have the means to do that can now jump into the.
Yes, thank you. Very true. Talking about the tool, yet another tool. What is your take on AI technology like ChatGPT, and will it will affect? And there's a lot of talk about it. Will it affect actually the careers moving forward? It's becoming used more and more in copywriting and even essays and UX writing. Do you think it will start overtaking non-creative industries as well? Because obviously now people do go and use it in a good or maybe not so good way sometimes also.
I don't know how it's going to evolve. I know there was a call to actually press the pause button on ChatGPT on AI as a whole because they feel that AI is advancing at a pace which is unsustainable and it's going to be dangerous for humanity. But I'm not sure. The people signing it had very different motivations, very different backgrounds, very different motivations. How I see things evolving is that interesting parallel. Like we're going to lose certain skills. So, for example, our generation, like previously before, like our parents' generation could do mental sums like easy, but our generation, because we have a calculator, we can't do it. Like we have to think for a lot longer because we lost that skill. So I know that when as part of like the GRE, GMAT exams, you have to write essays. You have to show that you're coherent with your thoughts, your ideas are well. All this is going to be taken away. I mean, there's no point for this. Like ChatGPT will think for us. Like, I mean, the our facility with laying out argument, not an argument, but like a list of points, like a coherent list of things to support an idea is going to be taken away because we don't need to think like that anymore. We don't need to be so critical in our thinking. We don't need to be coherent anymore because ChatGPT will do it for us effectively. So I feel that skill is going to be taken away. But in terms of jobs, yeah, a lot of creative jobs will be changed. I'm not sure will they be taken away, but the nature will be changed, I think.
Well, I hope for better, not for the worse, because it does, to be honest, it scares me in some of the instances when I see that it's misused a little bit. Going back to your exhibitions, you exhibited in Rome as well as in New York for NFT in New York City, and your work is currently being exhibited, I think, in Hong Kong, right? Coinciding with, or it was Hong Kong, yeah, Hong Kong Art Basel. Where else can we view and even purchase your art?
Okay, so I am going to have a job. For like physical prints coming soon. I think should be within this week, next. So that's going to be limited edition. So that.
Fantastic! Please shout, and I will shout for you as well. That's great.
So that's going to be my physical limited edition print.
Okay. Oh, that's wonderful. And where can we look at it, or where can we purchase it? And
It'd be on
how do we go about it? Sorry?
Yeah, so I will put up the link on Instagram.
Okay. Okay,
yeah.
Fantastic. And you'll send it to me as well. I would like to, before we finish, I would like to chat a little bit about your other projects. You have designed imagined residences, such as Nawab's residence in the Shandur Pass, luxury safari camp at Chitwan, Nepal, and maximalist Sinhean in Beijing, as well as conservation houses, shop houses, right, in Singapore, which I absolutely love. How does this differ from your AI art of amalgamated locations that we talked about earlier? Because these are very specific locations.
A lot of it is inspired by my travel. a lot of my work is inspired by my travel. So when people comment, oh, it's all AI, of course the AI does the heavy lifting, but the
Yeah.
inspiration and for my travel. So there was a house that I did, and I said the location was in Quito, Ecuador. And someone living in Quito, Ecuador actually commented saying that there's no such place in Quito, Ecuador. I'm like, there is such a place in Quito, Ecuador. I have been there. And it's like, it's actually like what is it called? It's like a remote, it's in Quito, but you still have to drive like 1.5, 2 hours. Right. And it is like a protected forest reserve, and it's only open to people. It's only open to guests, so it's very exclusive. And once you come in, a lot of people. It wasn't just me who thought it. I mean, I thought it, but I heard the other guests articulating it. This is like Jurassic Park because you go into like 9 different cloud forests, and you can cycle on like like lines. You can go on a bike and cycle over the cloud forest. It's beautiful. You're living in a jungle, like beautiful biodiversity.
So
And it
that
is an incredible.
inspired the project for you, basically. You really recreated it with your physical being there, yet the imaginary elements.
I just remembered the name, Mashpi Lodge. Yeah. So I have been there. It was inspired by that. But when someone says it doesn't exist in Quito, yeah, of course it exists.
Yeah.
I mean, my
Sure.
head, but yeah, it also exists. And also like one of my more recent ones in Arashiyama, the bamboo house. And it's like a house, but some people always say like, is this something I can rent? Is it a boutique hotel? Is it like an Airbnb? And I'm like, no, but I know it exists somewhere. The one in Arashiyama was inspired by Hoshinoya. I mean, the aesthetic is completely different, of course, but it was inspired by my stay in Hoshinoya so I know these places do not exist, but they are possible.
They're possible.
Like I was also telling you, it's not published yet. This project that I did, it's inspired by my trip. Like my first solo trip was to Lebanon in Beirut, and then I saw like the devastation because I went like 20 years ago, and Beirut was just rebuilding. It was a very exciting time to be there. And it's an architect called Bernard Khoury. He's very bold, and he would create nightclubs out of bunkers, and it's very controversial because people died there during the Civil War. This was where inmates were kept and killed. But he built a nightclub there called BO18, and he also built a $300 per head sushi restaurant in I think Ashrafiyeh, and the whole area, like, it's just one monolithic structure, and everything else is raised to the ground. And it kind of feels obscene because you can still see the bullet holes in the surrounding buildings. And this is like a $300 per head sushi place. But you come in, you go into, you step through the doors, you go in the lift, but the whole structure is the lift. And you go underneath, it is a completely different world. I think good architecture, even if obscene, transports you to a different world.
Oh, of course, absolutely. You know, as I said, your brain works in an incredible way, and you also obviously have so many other tasks that you're an editor of Mensa Singapore's newsletter, and you're a fellow of Royal Geographical Society here as well. Singapore is your home. Sorry?
No, I became the vice president of Mensa, but I was just there for one term. I don't like committees.
Okay. Join the club. Join the club. You live in Singapore. Singapore is obviously your home, but we chatted about your time and your love for Istanbul. So maybe you can say a few words about what really attracts you to Istanbul. Why?
The people are lovely, very kind. I mean, I think you know how good a country, the people of a country is by the way they treat their animals.
Yeah.
So when you go in Istanbul, like you go where I was living in Cihangir, the municipality actually has cat houses, like shelters for like the street cat. So if it gets too cold, it gets rainy, they have shelters on the streets, and always someone feeding the street dogs, someone taking care. I mean, if I see a dog injured across the street, and I'm like, what do I do? I don't know any vets. Someone has already taken care of it. So they take care of their stray animals very well. I feel Like even though I feel like dogs shouldn't be on the streets. Like
Yeah.
cats are okay, shouldn't be on the streets. But that aside, uh, Turkish people are amazing. The culture history is fascinating. I think like what I would
Yeah.
do,
The link between Asia and Europe was incredible. Yes.
the architecture, the design, and it's so vibrant.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
another expert was telling me that the beautiful thing about Istanbul is that whatever niche you are in, because he was into singing and in choir, like you will find people who are like-minded, and they will have a very good group to do it. Like not substandard, like really, really good people doing it. Like this is just so diverse. Like the kinds of people there is just so different. You can find anything you want in Istanbul.
Very true. Hajar, before we finish, when we were chatting with you the other day, you shared with me that you describe yourself as a work in progress. What would be a complete work look like? And do you feel that it's something to achieve at the end of your lifetime? Or it's still going to continue to be a work in progress?
Never. I think I told you, like my mind just wanders all the time. I don't know what the
Yeah.
end is.
Yes. Are there any rituals that you practice to keep yourself stimulated and constantly creating? What is your basic routine? Because, as I said, you're a multitasker, you're incredibly creative person. You spend a lot of time on different projects and with different implications. What is your sort of like go-to daily ritual that you always have in your day, in your routine, if any?
I don't have one. I mean, in certain periods of my life, I'm a different ritual. So when I was in the horse,
Yeah.
so when I was in my horse riding phase, I would be in the stables by like 7, and then I would spend the day riding, and then I come back and do work. But when I was in my language learning phase, I'd be the Alliance Française like 5 times a week. So it depends what phase I'm in. Right now, I'm in the AI creation stage, so I
Yeah.
am visually testing what the AI will give me, depending on what words I put in. So.
Well, it's been incredibly, truly amazing conversation. I'm sure many of our viewers, certainly me, are inspired by you and your initiatives and your travel and consciously and the creations that you achieve and moving forward. So I would like to make sure that all of us who've been viewing our conversation are following you, and I will be spreading the news, and this conversation will be recorded on my IGTV. It also will be recorded on YouTube, just like with all the other conversations that I have. And please follow Incredible Hajar and look at her art. And this really, really immerses me for sure. Every day I look at your art, it immerses me into a different world, and it gives me a different perspective to so many things. And I'm so
Thank you.
grateful for you
Thank
to
you.
do that for all of us. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Once again, I will pause this after we finish so everybody can watch again, or somebody who missed it will be able to see it as well. And I'll see you very, very soon for
Yeah.
our yet another coffee and another chat and another inspirational ideas.
Your
Thank
book. Yeah. You're
Yes,
amazing.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, that's right. So that's another copy. I have to sign you my book for absolutely, and I hope that you will enjoy it. But thank you
Thank you.
for reminding me. Thank
Thank
you
you.
once again, and it was great to see you on this platform. And have a good evening, and I'll talk to you very soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Olga. Talk to you soon.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye bye.